Buying a new construction home sounds just amazing, right? But before you sign that contract, here are 5 things that builders typically don't tell you, but they probably should. I'm Realtor Nick Belmore, and I specialize in helping buyers find the right home in West Michigan. And I am going to dive into today 5 things builders should absolutely let you know, but typically don't. Let's get into the content. Number 1, the base price typically isn't real. What do I mean by that? Well, builders love to advertise base price. That's the number you typically see in front of the subdivision. But by the time you start to get into lot premiums, upgrades, customization, all those different pieces, well, let's just say most are not closing at that base price. Understanding exactly what you get for base price and what are the upgrades that you have to have and what are the upgrades that you can't live without can make a humongous difference. But when it comes to pricing, usually things are pretty fuzzy until you start making all those selections and customizations, with some homes being up to $100,000 more than the base price after you start to look at some of those options. Number 2, and definitely an important one, not all of the upgrades are really going to add value to the home. Builders are going to offer numerous amounts of tempting upgrades, and some of them are super cool, super amazing, and some of them do have value, but not all. Sometimes the upgrades are just simply a waste of money. Now listen, maybe you enjoy it. Maybe it's something that's customized that makes the home a better experience for you. If that's the case, it very well might be worth it. But oftentimes when we start to get into high-end flooring or we start to get into high-end cabinets and hardware as well as countertops, very quickly the actual cost of these things cannot be reflected back into the appraisal. And sometimes things are gimmicky, but over the years, they don't seem to hold up. Did anybody remember when they used to sell whole house vacuums in new construction? Not so much anymore. It was a fad. It was an extra typically $2,500 to $3,500. However, most people didn't replace them and don't look for them in homes today. So what are some of the features that really make sense for you? And what are some of those fad features that, quite honestly, just might not make sense when we start to reflect on the cost in those types of things? Number 3 on our list, timelines can often change quite a bit. Here's the thing, in builders today, they try to project out what they expect the timeline to be for your new home. But one of the things that we find for sure is that they can't control the weather and oftentimes can't control supply and oftentimes product chains. Things might be coming from out of the country or even from other states. And 2 years ago, we saw a huge spike in a lot of materials that caused some delays as homes started to come through. Often messed with budgets at that exact same time too. So we know for sure that timelines can change a lot. And if you're having a custom home built, some builders are putting them up in 6 to 7 months, some builders in 9 to 12. It's definitely important to get an estimation of timeline, but you don't want to count on it as a hard date to be moving into the home, and you want to be able to have a little bit of flexibility when it comes to that move-in date for your new construction home. Number 4, and this is definitely an important one, home inspections are still necessary on new construction. That's right, I know a lot of people out there think, well, wait a minute, the thing's brand new. Why do I have to have it inspected? Well, you want to have it inspected a lot of times for workmanship. Oftentimes things can get missed, especially if a builder could be putting up hundreds of homes a year. And it's an important reason to make sure that we're taking a look and seeing what's going on out there in new construction. There's a home inspector in Arizona that goes by Sci-Fi Home Inspections on TikTok, and they specialize in new construction and oftentimes showcasing a lot of the things that simply weren't installed right or had manufactured defects in people's new homes, from $4,000 all the way up to $800,000 in a lot of his videos. So if you're making an investment and you're making a large investment, oftentimes with buyers, it's the most expensive thing they've ever bought as they build a new home, it's really important to make sure it's coming out just the way you expected it. Not just the materials are what you want, but they're installed properly and they're going to be set up to last you a long, long time. One of the things that this inspector was catching with one of these new builders is the tubs were not bedded into the subfloor correctly, and a lot of them were cracking fairly soon. This was something that through inspection after inspection he showed, and they ended up making a correction in how they were installing those tubs so future homeowners did not have to deal with, well, water leaking into either the first floor from the second or oftentimes from the first floor down into the basement. Making sure that a lot of your stuff is done exactly how you expect it is an important piece and not one to just be left up to chance in the new construction process. Number 5, and this is again one that a lot of people don't know if you haven't been through the process, the contracts favor the builders. Typically, as a realtor, when I write a contract, it comes on a standard contract from the board of realtors, and what we do is we look to protect the buyer as much as possible. 99% of our builders out here absolutely will not use that contract. When you buy one of their homes, they have their own contract that can be anywhere from 7 up to 35 pages in some of the builders that I've worked with here in the area. What are the differences? Why do the builders want their own contracts? Because there's typically a million loopholes when it comes to timeline, floating or expanding cost, when it comes to material shortage. Any of these things that could happen are often written at this point in the favor of the builder. So it's important to have an understanding of what's in that contract and what are the penalties, if any, if your product isn't delivered on time. Oftentimes the problems with these contracts is they're written in the builder's favor, so the builder can inconvenience or cost money to the buyer in a million ways, but if the buyer doesn't have the money into the builder on time every time, they're looking at sacrificing deposit, down payment, or incurring penalties at that phase. You want to know what are the rules of the transaction, and that's why it's important to have a great realtor to go over that contract with you and make sure that they can explain what are the expectations and what are some of the openings when you start to look at the builder's contracts. Listen, we know that buying new construction can be ultra exciting, but having a firm grasp and an understanding of the process is definitely important. Having someone to guide you in the difference between the local builders and the products they offer and the processes they go through is another super important one that you want to make sure that we have covered throughout the process. Having someone experienced guide you through that absolutely can be a game changer when it comes to the new construction process here in West Michigan. If you're thinking about looking for new construction or going through and getting some information before you get started, give me a call. My information is in the description below, and I would absolutely love to help guide you through the new construction process here in West Michigan.